Well, evidently we don't have it open, so we are live. It's Jim, it's Matt, it's Friday. You can tell. Matt, yesterday, opening-ish day for Major League Baseball, and we had some fun games, some wild games, and you know, it's uh, it's good to have baseball back.
Yeah, it is. We when we came on, we had already seen really what was the start of what ended up being a wild, high-scoring game that I don't think anybody really expected between the Pirates and the Mets. That game ended 11-7. The Mets
Mhm.
ended up coming out on top with that one. And just not what you would have expected out of those two starting pitchers. Said that
Right.
yesterday, but got to be really impressed. I think the Mets probably have to feel, it's a one game sample size, but good about the acquisitions they made and the changes they made.
Yeah, I think they're probably pleased. I know the Dodgers seem to be from what they got. Uh, just a quick kudos again. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Um, really enjoyed NBC's broadcast, both of them. One yesterday with the Pirates and the Mets, and then of course the Dodgers game out in Los Angeles last night against Arizona. That was well done. Luis Gonzalez, who is part of the broadcast team for the Diamondbacks, and of course Earl Hershiser, part of the Dodgers broadcast group, did exactly what they were meant to do, and that was to talk about the teams, and even had Clayton Kershaw in there as well. So it made for a very entertaining broadcast.
Yeah, yeah, and that's hopefully that continues. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that is the correct formula that they're using.
Mm-hmm. Now, I watched some games yesterday on the MLB, uh, TV situation, and what I will say is Major League Baseball is now producing uh, the home broadcast for 15 teams,
Hmm.
and you'll see pretty much generic graphics. They're good, they're clean, they're easy to read. Um, and yesterday they had drones that they were using, and I mean, this yesterday, at least I can speak to the games I saw that were produced by Major League Baseball. The quality of the games themselves from a production standpoint was way better than anything locally I've seen.
Yeah, which is a big plus. It's always interesting, really, in these first games of the year where you kind
Hmm.
of see this new stuff rolled out.
Hmm.
Like Nesson rolled out a new score bug, and
Hmm.
based on what they used to have, it felt like that thing just took up the entirety of the screen
Hmm.
the way it was. So there's always new changes when it comes to the
Hmm.
broadcast and the product on TV
Hmm.
at the start of this year. Some of them are good. Some people will just absolutely hate them.
Hmm. Well, the generic graphics that MLB put out are very easy to read. It's the score bug down in the corner is easy to read. Um, the opens are very uniform, which is what Bally's and FanDuel did, but at another level. But when we're talking the use of drones, the use of multi cameras, the use of multi replays, um, you know, I don't know. Well, Nesson's going to do what Nesson does, and they do a fantastic job, and have always done a fantastic job. But I'm just talking about Major League Baseball taking over these 15 teams, and frankly, just elevating the quality of broadcasts that we get to see yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, big plus all around in terms of what they get on TV and the access that they give now to the fans in this
Right.
model.
Yeah, and the thing that I thought was entertaining, and this is it's very smart play on their part. What Major League Baseball is doing with these 15 teams is they're sharing feeds. Okay. So instead of, paying for two trucks to be there with two different producers, two different directors, two different concepts of how the game should be, cut from a director standpoint, um, they're basically putting out what is, in essence, a straight feed and adding the graphics, and that allows them you know, to put toys like drone cameras up. It basically also allows them the opportunity to, you know, to use multiple replays and to use a whole bunch of toys that, FanDuel, quite frankly, was producing the games on the cheap. I can understand why they were losing money, but Major League Baseball has decided they're going to up the game, and it certainly, at least for day one, came out very nice.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you kinda get what you pay for there with
Mm-hmm.
FanDuel and the production. I mean, I don't think that was an unpopular train of thought that it was a relatively cheap production all around
Mm-hmm.
that they gave you. So it is nicer to see that they've been able to up that value
Mm-hmm.
production-wise in this new model as well.
Yesterday, one of the things that uh, caught my attention was in the Washington game against the Cubs. In the first inning, Cabert Louise, Cabert, the catchers for he's a catcher for the Washington Nationals. There was a close pitch that would have gone from, you know, two, two, I'm sorry, one ball, two strikes. That's where I go. I try to get it straight. Could have been, three balls and one strike. And he called on it and he won.
Mhm.
And the next pitch, the man, the player struck out. So early in the game, even, because it was they had a man on first, that could have put two guys on base. It could have changed you know, um, the whole look of what went on. But he was willing. He just, in the first inning realized, wait a minute, I don't want to let this thing get out of hand, and he
Yeah.
made it go.
Yeah, no, I mean, yesterday I was watching, in the Red Sox game, top of the ninth inning, they were up to
Mhm,
bat. Roman Anthony was up to bat, Marcel Meyer was standing on first,
mhm,
and it was a 3-2 count, and at that point in the top of the ninth, I mean, Roman Anthony was honest about it in his
mhm,
post-game interview. He said, "Really, I was just challenging because at that point in the game, it was kinda like,
mhm.
why not burn it? Like, we have it,
Right.
let's use it." So he challenged. It turns out flipping to ball four on that 3-2 count instead of
Mhm.
what was originally called a third strike.
Right.
Walks to first. Following that up, Trevor Story singles to left, scores a run.
Mhm.
Following that up, Jaron Duran singles to right, scores another run. They got two runs off of what
Mhm.
was a successful challenge
Right.
on the back end, and two runs of insurance in what was a 1-0 game. Would have been a
Mhm.
1-0 game headed to the bottom of the ninth.
Mhm. So it seems so far to be entertaining to at least get that those challenges in. So
Yeah, and it's tough to I guess it's tough to anticipate moments like that. Like, you
yeah,
can't
you don't know what's going to
yeah,
happen.
you can't, like, save those challenges because, like, maybe in the 8th inning, we're gonna have runners on 2nd and 3rd, and it's gonna
Mhm.
be 1 out, and a pitch is gonna get called strike 3, send them, and that could have
Mhm.
changed the game, right?
Yep.
But it is interesting to see how they're choosing to kinda use these, and the strategy is different now from what it was in spring training. I was
Mhm.
listening to the broadcast yesterday. They talked about how most teams in spring training, the way they used them, it was kind of just like go out there and get a feel for it, right?
Mhm.
And so most of them were gone by the fifth inning. That's no longer going to be the case. They're a lot like more cautious in their use of them. They're less free with how they use these challenges now. And I'll be honest, I think certain players are granted, certain privileges when it comes to
Mhm.
challenging pitches as well
Sure.
compared to others.
Um, Actually, in the night broadcast, Clayton Kershaw mentioned that. He said that there's no question in his mind because they were talking about Yamamoto and they're talking about different pitches,
Mhm.
and Clayton said, "Look, I'm not gonna lie." He said, "I'm sure without shadow of a doubt that if I was pitching a game that the umpire gave me a little more leeway than he's given, a guy who's starting for his first,
Mhm.
his first major league start, or for that matter, a journeyman pitcher." And
Yeah.
he said, I don't, I'm not saying this to be, to toot my own horn. I'm just simply saying that some veteran pitchers are going to get that call when others aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's something that's really all that uncommon.
Mhm.
especially when you've been like Verlander's going to get a better zone than most guys. Scherzer's going
Sure.
to get a better zone than most guys,
Mhm.
probably, in terms of leeway from the umpire behind the plate.
Mhm.
But it is good because now there's that two-sided thing. I know there was one of the umpires that said, or maybe it was a former umpire that made mention to like, well, it's a little bit embarrassing. Like you don't want to be embarrassed or
Mhm.
like made to be out that wrong, I guess, in front of
Mhm.
the crowd of fans that there is.
Sure.
But on the backside, it does kind of give the umpires a weapon, I would say, because if a guy looks back at you and goes, that was outside,
Mhm.
challenge it, challenge the call. Like now you've got your thing.
Mhm.
And I also like the side of it from these teams are more inclined to just let their catchers challenge the pitches.
Mhm.
Because if you let pitchers really just kind of loosey goosey with it, they're pretty egotistical and they think a lot of
They
stuff.
they'd burn it before the first inning is over.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, we wouldn't make it to the top of the second with any challenges left. So
right.
I think the umpire factor. I get the not wanting to have to watch a jumbotron and see a pitch.
Mhm.
You had one bad one and missed by 2 inches off the plate, get overturned. But at the
Mhm.
same time, it also gives you kind of that bargaining chip for a lot of the barking that you could have gotten from
Right.
hitters or catchers for that matter
Yeah.
behind the plate.
It's funny, Doc Roberts was talking in the pregame show last night to Costas about, uh, this whole thing, and Doc said, "You know what's gonna happen, Bob?" And he said, "What's that?" He goes, "A lot I'm not gonna get thrown out of baseball games a lot more."
Yeah.
He says, "I'm gonna," he goes, if, it's hard for me to argue with the machine that, on one hand gives me something and the other hand takes it away."
Yeah, yeah, and it's something where maybe you're still in the situation late in the
Mhm.
game. Like I can tell you yesterday, I think there was 4 challenges. All they
Mhm.
used 4 challenges between Boston and Cincinnati.
Mhm.
I went and looked at the umpire scorecard from yesterday. They could have had a lot more. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a tough game for them, well below average,
Right.
well below the umpire's average. So even though it's there, it doesn't stop the umpire from having a bad day behind the plate. Like there's
Oh,
still
sure.
going to be missed calls because you
Mhm.
literally cannot challenge every single bad one there
No.
is.
And they're human. They're
Yeah.
gonna they're gonna make a mistake here along the way. Um, One thing, we talk baseball. This is a little off topic, but I wanted to get your feeling on it, and that is, uh, yesterday, Major League Baseball Network, a new one of their new announcers, Kevin Kiermaier,
Mhm.
came in, and there was conversation between he and Brian Kinney, and it got me thinking: why is it that Major League Baseball does not, when it comes to Hall of Fame, does not recognize defense at all?
Yeah, I think typically speaking, as much as it may stink, defense is considered an additive. Is you make the Hall of Fame with your bat. Um, I mean, it sucks because you can't flip it around the other way. Like you cannot, like it just doesn't apply for guys. You're like, well, he was an all-world defender, and
Mhm.
luckily he hit 250 too. Like it doesn't work the same way. It's more the flip around. Like, yeah, he batted a career 315. High slugging percentage, numbers off the charts, this, that, and the other. Oh, by
He
the way,
couldn't catch.
yeah. Oh, by the way, he won a couple Gold Gloves. Like that's a plus. That's not something that's going to make your Hall of Fame resume. So it does suck. But it's I think it's a lot of times people just don't see the value in it, right? Like it's not
Well,
something that it's not as cool, as sexy or anything like that. So it's not going
mhm.
to get you as many brownie points when it comes. And I think quite honestly, they just don't view it as valuable.
Well, let me just throw a name out there because you're a Red Sox fan. When people ask me, in my lifetime, who was can I name the top 5 defensive right fielders, right?
Hmm.
And I always put on that list Dwight Evans.
Hmm.
I Dwight Evans to me, I have I have no idea how many runs he saved, because of his ability to, track down a fly ball.
Hmm.
It's not easy to play right field in Fenway Park at all.
Yeah.
And he played it better than anybody.
Hmm.
And I'm certain that he could have played right field for anybody. But just saying, because it was the Red Sox, um, it's just they've only started the stat of, um, you know, runs denied, basierly.
Yeah.
Uh,
DRS, defensive runs
right.
saved.
Defensive runs saved. And it's funny because they had Kiermaier on there yesterday. And Kiermaier won it 5 years in a row,
Hmm.
averaging between 30 and 35. I mean,
Yeah.
you save 30 to 35 runs in over a season. That's a difference in baseball games, in any way you look at it.
Yeah, and I think it's a situation now where it's not worked out these
Hmm.
past really last year and this year. He's been a lot better at the plate, but
Hmm.
eh, they have a guy in center field right now in Cedon Rafaela who if he hits 215,
Yeah.
that's okay. Like you know what you're getting out of center field. Jackie Bradley Jr. He had such
Hmm.
a career after really his peak in Boston because of what he could do in center field. Like
Right.
your defense, I guess, buys you time to get the glove or to get the bat to come around.
Hmm.
And if your defense is good enough, the bat doesn't have to come around. You can
Hmm.
just kind of coast off of it because you're that good of a center fielder.
I know that, you're talking about the Atlanta Braves. I know that their team right there in your neighborhood,
Mhm.
and they had some guys. Um, Davy Johnson, God loved him. God rest his soul. What a spectacular hitter. He wasn't a bad hitter, but he was a hell of a glove man.
Mhm.
And you sit there and you go, my God, look at what he did. Look at what Brooks Robinson, guys like that. Now Brooks
Mhm.
is in the Hall of Fame, okay, but there's a lot of guys who, for whatever reason, did not make it. And if you look at it, if you ask the teammates, if you look at the analytics, defense in baseball to me is just as important as offense.
Yeah, you talked about Atlanta. There's a guy down there that was, I mean, he might as well have just been a black hole. Like there was nothing that was going to escape his range, and that was Andrelton Simmons playing
Mhm,
shortstop. I mean, he was probably the best defensive shortstop in Major League
mhm,
Baseball there for what
mhm,
and I mean, I was younger, but it felt like a decade at that point. Like
mhm,
he played there in Atlanta, won
mhm,
all those gold gloves, played so well, went out to Los Angeles and the Angels.
mhm.
And I mean, his bat didn't come around in Los Angeles, but they kept him
Right.
around. And he had a good long career in Los Angeles as well because they
Mhm.
knew what they were getting in his glove at shortstop. Like he was that good defensively that you can afford to have the bat. And I think it's tough because those guys, like 215 is not an average that's really going to keep you in a major league lineup, at least not
Mhm.
one that's going to be competitive for World Series titles. But it's something where as a team you can afford to have one to two of those guys. The problem is that they just create such a hole in that lineup, it feels like, and they're so unreliable in that spot that it's tough, but that glove has to be that high of value to keep them in there for long term.
If you look at some of the guys who have been defensive players, right? They they do a very good job of fundamentals. They can
Mhm.
get, they'll make contact with the ball. In other words, maybe they can advance runners. They can bunt. They can, they do the little things because they know they're not going to average wise. They're not going to get, you're not going to hit 300 for them. But I was just thinking a couple of shortstops, Dansby Swanson, right, who played for the Braves and now plays for the Cubs. Fantastic glove. You're not going to take him out of the game because you can't afford to take him out of the game.
Yeah,
These guys, you can take it and say, okay, I don't care if you don't hit because you're going to save me a lot of grief. there's a lot of pitchers who would, who they decided that they only wanted to use that one catcher, and that one catcher wasn't a starter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like I've seen that they grow in their familiarity and
Mm-hmm.
who they're comfortable with behind the plate,
Right.
and it can go a long way into getting guys starts. I mean, heck,
Mm-hmm.
last year Brian Bayo exclusively threw with Connor Wong, and
Mm-hmm.
Connor Wong for probably I'd say 4/5 of last
Mm-hmm.
season was, I mean, just god awful, one of the worst hitters I've ever seen in my entire life. Towards the back end of the season, he found it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, really the main reason that he kept getting starts was one because Carlos Narvaez, the starting catcher,
Mm-hmm.
can't catch every game, and two was because every day that Brian Bayo was on the mound, you knew that Connor Wong was going to be behind the plate because that's who he felt comfortable with.
I'll give you another one, Marcus Simeon.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus was a phenomenal shortstop. They moved him, obviously. But Simeon, when he played shortstop in Oakland, there was no ball getting by him.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely true.
So,
Also, I went back and looked at Andrelton Simmons' stats. I
mm-hmm.
apologize. I was so disrespectful to his bat. He had multiple seasons, really, when he made it to Los Angeles. He hit
Mm-hmm.
281, 278, 292,
Mm-hmm.
264, 297. And those last 2 years, 223 and 173. And that was in Minnesota and Chicago back in 21 and 22.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
he swung it a lot better than I gave him credit for. One
Well,
season,
and Simeon could hit too. I mean, there's no
oh,
question.
yeah,
But
he still can. Yeah.
yeah, but
Um,
he's on the back end of that part of his career.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, back in 2017, Simmons accumulated 8 WAR with the Angels,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a season in which he hit 278. So that's goes to show you just how good his glove was. He
Right.
won 4 Gold Gloves across his career.
Which ain't shabby.
No, it's not bad at all.
Let me run down today's baseball games. We obviously yesterday had a lot of games, and we didn't have everybody playing. San Francisco is hosting the Yankees this afternoon. That's a 4:35 game. Shuttler and Ray on the hill. Athletics are at Toronto. That's the opener for Toronto, and of course for I don't know what to call them, Sacramento, Vegas, whatever it is at the moment. Who
The
knows?
Athletics.
The Athletics. Servino for them, Gosman for Toronto. Colorado's at Miami. Nobody cares, but anyway, it's Freeland against Alcantara. Wonder if Alcantara is going to be in another uniform by the trade deadline. Anyway,
I mean, you'd have to believe at some point they're going to trade him. It feels like we've done that song and dance for the last 3 trade deadlines at this
right.
point.
Kansas City is in Atlanta. Reagan's against Chris Sale. Angels are in Houston. That's your Apple TV game at 8:15. Kershey and Burrows. Detroit, San Diego. That's Valdez against King. The backup game on Apple is Cleveland at Seattle as a 9:45 start. Williams against Kirby. Arizona is at Chavez Ravine to play against the Dodgers. That's your Major League Baseball game of the week on the Friday night. Nelson for Arizona and Sheehan on the bump for the Dodgers. So there's your baseball for tonight. One real quick thing. We talked yesterday about the importance of college baseball. So I thought it'd be fun to bring up the rankings. And this is the rankings as of the beginning of this week. Number 1 on the list is the UCLA Bruins. Number 2 is the Longhorns from Texas. Georgia Tech is 3. Arkansas, number 4. USC, number 5. Mississippi State, number 6. Auburn, number 7. The Dogs from Georgia in your top 10 spot in the 8th slot. Virginia is number 9. FSU is number 10. Oklahoma is number 11. Number 12 is Southern Miss. Oregon in the 13 spot. Carolina has got that 14 spot nailed down. Oregon State is in the 15 spot. NC State is in 16. Arizona State is in 17. West Virginia is in the 18th spot. 19 belongs to Ole Miss. Kentucky has number 20. Tennessee has 21. Nebraska is your 22nd ranked team. USF is 23. Coastal Carolina 24. And Jacksonville State is in the 25th spot. Dropping out, Florida, Clemson, Louisiana, Wake, and Kansas State. And those getting votes, Cincinnati, Kansas State, Missouri State, Notre Dame, and UCF. So that's your rankings of college baseball for this week. So
Yeah, I thought it's interesting. It mentioned Georgia's in there at 7. They've been so good
actually
in their
8. Yeah.
oh 8. All right. They've been really good in their weekend series, but dear God, have they not been able to win a midweek game to save their lives? I mean, they lost to Kennesaw State. I think they
Good.
lost like Queens. I don't even. It's been honestly kind of insane. Some of the schools they've lost to in the midweek, and then went on to win some series in the weekend over Texas A&M and Tennessee, teams like that.
You got 4 SEC schools in the top 10.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
Shouldn't surprise anybody.
no, they've been really good in terms of being a predominantly baseball conference. Like it's something that they've been good, whether it be Florida, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Georgia had its time really more in the early 2000s. They're trying to get back to that, but overall, I mean Tennessee recently as well. Vanderbilt, obviously, the long-standing in the 2010s there. So they've had a team at the top for what feels like over 2+ decades at this point.
I've had scouts tell me that watching SEC baseball is like watching double to AAA baseball in major leagues.
I mean, it's definitely possible. Like talking about Georgia, like they lead college baseball in home runs, if I remember correctly. And they just hammer the baseball, and yet somehow they cannot beat a team midweek.
What are you going to do? I mean, you have to play those games. So
Yeah,
we'll see. All right, let's move on. Last night, couple of decent. The first 2 games were great. The second 2 games, not so much. But we got our rock fight with Nebraska and Iowa.
yeah. It's something where you hate to take away credit from a team. But I still, for as long as Nebraska's playing basketball, will think about what if, going back to that Florida game, what if they had made the correct call and thrown, oh God, what's his name?
Are you talking about Iowa?
Yeah, I'm talking about Iowa.
Not Nebraska.
Not Nebraska, no.
No.
I'm thinking Fulgaris. What if Fulgaris was not able to play in that Florida game? A guy who gave them 16, really closed that game out for them last night, hit the game-winning 3 against Florida as well.
Right.
And it is a real what if. But they still play the games, and it was up to them to win this one. They got out there and they got it done. I mean, they really didn't shoot all that well from behind the arc, but they eventually got it going. And then once they did, 43% is good enough to win you basketball games for sure, especially when, Nebraska really they shot over what they did for the season in that first half, and then the lead. And then in the second half, they fell back down to their season average, shooting 34% once things were all said and done. And that's what lost them the game. They were unable to shoot the 3 ball really in that last 2 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, in watching the game, it's just my opinion. It's hard to watch those games. They're not. I mean, it's nothing there in that Nebraska-Iowa game. There was no pace. There was no tempo. It was just 2 teams that basically wanted to play. It was like watching a scrum. I mean, they were constantly going to the foul line. They were constantly making shots and missing it. I don't know how many air balls both those teams had, but God, it wasn't even close sometimes. So, I mean, kudos to Iowa to moving forward. Great for Nebraska having a wonderful season. But my God, it's ugly basketball.
relatively speaking, that game looked a lot better than the nightcap they had going on in Houston.
Oh, well, yeah, true.
Yeah, and I guess if we're playing comparisons, that game's ugly. 65-55. Oh
Right.
my God. That's just what happened.
I thought Houston would roll up. I mean, they played in town, like I said yesterday, 5 miles from the campus.
Yeah, yeah, but good Lord. I mean, I I didn't watch it.
Mhm.
Thank God, I
Mhm.
guess. That's a disgusting score.
Well, I went the other way. I went to the Arizona game, watched
Mhm.
that one.
Yeah,
And
handed Coach Cal his largest tournament
oof,
ever.
oh man, if Arizona isn't the best team in college basketball, I don't know who is.
I mean, Darius Acuff gave him 28 on
Mhm,
8 of 19, and I mean
mhm,
that wasn't even remotely close to enough. I mean, you just
mhm,
look at it. Iowa starters, they had two guys break 20. The lowest scorer out of their starting five had 14, and two of them had 14. One of them had 15. The other two had 20 plus. And when you get that out of your starting five, and they're all on really good shooting percentage, 4 of 6, 8 of 11, 6 of 9, 7 of 11, 4 of 8. Like that's not only does that get it done, that's fantastic. The bench scores, the guys who took shots was 6 of 10 and 2 of 3. They shot 64% from the field and 63% from behind the arc. They only took 8 threes and they scored 109 points.
hmm. Whoa,
Yeah,
that's that Texas Purdue game was good too. Um,
I I was infuriated watching that game.
you
Nothing
and
short.
Charles Barkley.
I it drove me up a wall watching that basketball game. I'll admit, I a little bit of it. I'm a little salty. I'd picked Texas. I'd been
Mhm,
right all the way in my brackets up until
mhm,
that point. I had them beating Purdue and then losing in the next round.
mhm,
But the officials have to learn how
mhm,
to officiate Kaufman Wren. That he
mhm,
hooked, he held, he lowered his shoulder. I
mhm.
think between him and Klaus, they probably committed like 20 fouls combined throughout the game.
Right.
And Klaus didn't get ejected or didn't foul out until like one of the final two possessions of the game.
Yeah.
That's how close it was. I mean, Kaufman Wren was hooking them. I went back, not even went back and watched. I watched on that last thing when he
Yeah.
tipped that ball in. He had Swain and he had him hooked, which
Mhm.
is illegal and is a foul. He
Yep.
had he had Swain's right arm hooked and
Mhm.
went up while he had that arm hooked and tipped it in. Like
Right.
it was insane the hooking that they got away with. I
Right.
hate it. I do not like it. It is not ethical basketball, especially when they are going to the line as much as they're going to the line. They
Mhm.
have to learn how to officiate Kaufman Wren going into their matchup against Arizona, I believe. And I mean, I don't think it's going to be a problem because I think Arizona can match up with them and it shouldn't be an issue. But that was absurd what I watched last night. The stuff that those Texas bigs got or the Purdue bigs got away. And really they put
Mhm.
Vocatitis for Texas in foul trouble. They put all of Texas bigs in foul trouble
Mhm.
because they were doing it first. And then on the back end, Texas repeats and they don't get the same and
Mhm.
I throw the first punch, whoever throws second gets caught. Same thing
Right.
applied there. So it was frustrating to see the way they were clearing people out and the way they were hooking people and just really getting away with it.
I was concerned. Not concerned. I was confused as to why um, that Texas didn't foul with 11 seconds left and put a guy on the line, and at least you're going to get a shot.
Yeah, it's tough. I think in that scenario when you're tied like that, it's tough
Mhm.
to, I guess, give the team the lead back with
Right.
inside 10 seconds.
Mhm.
And I think the second part is that they didn't have any timeouts, so they couldn't set any.
Oh, if they hadn't, that'd be a good reason.
Yeah, so I think you have to. I think you just have to kind of trust your guys to go out there and play good defensive possession. I mean, I
How
do think.
how is it though? I mean, I don't know if you remember this. This is back. We're talking about the Iowa game. If we go
Mhm.
back to the Iowa game for a second. How is it that you in Nebraska only had 4 guys on the court? in that
I didn't
one.
even see that. I missed that. When did they have 4 guys on the court?
Well, they came out of a timeout, and then they're inbounding, and all of a sudden, this guy's throwing a basketball, baseball type basket. Like, where the hell is he throwing it? And there's a guy standing by the basket for Iowa, and just does a layup, and you're like, where's? And they count, and they came out of this is out of a timeout. They came out with, there's only 4 guys that walked on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just the pressures and what
Yeah, I mean,
create.
it's you're looking around going, wait a minute, you thought, how did this guy get so open, right?
Yeah,
So you're
yeah,
looking for like double teams or something. And there was 4 guys on the court.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Charles was upset about the tip in because he said, "Where's the bigs? Where's Texas's big guys? You got to block this
yeah,
guy out. You can't let him do it." But you're right. I mean, he did hook him.
yeah, yeah. And it was really just what it. I mean, I watched the whole thing, and it was over and over again. And it's frustrating when you're getting that and not getting the calls, and that builds up throughout a game.
Well, you
So
also go ahead.
I was, and it limits you through other stuff that you're doing. Like now, you have to take Volkatitis out with, what was it, 6 minutes left in that game. His defensive presence isn't felt. Like you have to now rotate these guys because Heidi got into foul trouble as well. I mean, these are guys. Heidi didn't score for him, but he was playing some solid defense. And really, when you're taking away that depth, and they already have one of their guys on 1.5 legs in Tremont Mark, I mean, he gave him everything he had on one leg. I think I go to Swain really, and when you take away and you really look at it, Texas still had a really good chance to win this basketball game, regardless of how I feel about how the game was officiated down low while Purdue was on offense. And I really go to Swain, and he was there. It's 1A and 1B throughout the majority of the season for Texas with Tremont Mark and Dalen Swain. Let me make sure Dalen Swain. And Swain, he had 15. He did not show up until it was too late. Like he needed to be able to take some of the load off of Tremont Mark since he was playing on 1.5 legs.
Right.
And he really could not do that effectively until really that final and one.
And it's one of those things where you're sitting there going, okay, well, I don't think I agree with you. I don't think I don't care who matches up against Arizona, they're going to have a hard time. So we'll see from that. So what do we got tonight? We got Iron Eagle, Bill Rafferty, Grant Hill, and Tracy Wolfson down the road here in Washington, D.C., where tonight a couple of blue bloods here, Little Ricky and St. John's taking on John Shire and Duke. This is going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I picked St. John's in this. I liked them. I don't love Duke. I just don't. It feels like they've failed to show up a couple of times this year, and I trust the consistency from them overall. When they play these good basketball teams, they don't always bring their A+ stuff. So they're 6.5-point favorites. We saw 8.5-point favorites in Purdue and Texas yesterday go down to the wire. So it's something where I like St. John's, and these point totals, they may be big because Alabama, Michigan's 8.5. And you can look at them and maybe point one way or the other. It's razor thin in these games. Like it's now Sweet 16. These are even matchups. This is something where I don't care what the point spread is. I wouldn't feel comfortable going either way on it.
I'll tell you what. We'll get to it in a minute, but St. John's and UConn came to D.C. yesterday. I'm sorry, today's Friday. It came on Wednesday. Both came by train, and I can tell you right now, a friend of mine was getting. I got a phone call, and we were talking this morning. He's coming down from New York sometime today, and I mean the Acela train from New York, from the Connecticut the northern part of New York City, which is basically where Connecticut is. It's like maybe 20 miles from the border.
Mhm.
You know, St. John's, Duke, UConn in DC. That place is going to be rocking and packed all with those three. Those three. I feel sorry. It's hard for me to say this because of Tom Izzo and Michigan State, but I don't know how many people is going to be in there in the building that are going to be Michigan State fans.
Yeah,
And I know
yeah,
they travel. Michigan State travels.
yeah.
No
They do
question
travel well. That'll be a saving grace for
about
them trying to even out that building.
it.
Yeah, but
It's
it
going to
is
be crazy.
yeah, it is tough. Too Big East, and then you have Duke, who's not all that far, sitting there in North
Right.
Carolina.
Well,
Um,
it's going to be funny too because I'm guessing that the St. John's fans are going to be rooting for Michigan State,
yeah,
and UConn fans are going to be rooting for Duke.
yeah, probably not far off on that. You probably have clashing. There could also be a train of thought where they want to play them. Like there's a good chance that UConn, having lost to St. John's in that
Yeah.
Big East title game, wants St. John's again.
Well, I'm sure that Hurley wants them. I can tell you
Yeah,
that right now.
yeah. Well, that's a given. But I'm sure Patino wants them. I'm not sure if those St. John's fans want UConn again.
Mm-mm.
That may partially go into it when
I'm
you
not sure Rick wants them either.
yeah, when you add in the dislike. So
Mhm.
there's that. But what I will add in there is I did pick Michigan State in that game.
Mhm.
It was upsetting yesterday. I'm not gonna lie, because in my ESPN bracket I have with my friends,
Mhm.
I was perfect on the Sweet 16. I picked
Wow.
the Sweet 16 perfectly,
Mhm.
and then Texas lost, and then we
Boom.
followed it, up with Nebraska losing, and it's like,
Mhm.
all right, well, so I do have St. John's and Michigan State picked for
So
this.
the saving grace continues. You're good.
Yeah, so it was a tough night last night for me because I picked Houston over Illinois as well. I only went 1 for 4, but hope maybe today will give me a little bit more
Well,
luck.
thank God you're not a gambler.
Yeah, yeah, thank goodness.
Alabama, Michigan. Alabama's very athletic. I think Michigan can still get this game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is something where Michigan, they spent the money. Like they went out this
Mhm.
a Sweet 16 appearance is not going to make the Michigan faithful happy with the way things have
Mhm.
gone this season. I mean, we were talking about them as this like unbeatable Titan
Mhm.
really midway through the year. Like a Sweet 16 loss to Alabama is going to leave, the
Mhm.
maize and blue with a really nasty crimson taste left in their mouth.
Right.
And honestly, I think you got to give Alabama a little bit of credit. They obviously had what was going on
Mhm.
with Aiden Holloway, that situation. It hasn't derailed this team. I mean, they pounded Texas Tech. They beat them
Mhm.
by 25. That game wasn't close. So it's a game where I think when you look at it, missing the guard, you would have thought this was going to play a factor. But Alabama's played such good
Mhm.
basketball over these last 2 games. You have to really reasonably believe that they're going to be in this thing tight with a really good chance to win here
Mhm.
late. And this is not going to be something where Michigan's kind of able to keep them at arm's length and keep
Right.
them at arm's length for a full 60 minutes.
I'll tell you what. The nightcap, which it's a 10-10 tip on TBS. By the way, the um, the early game we talked about, St. John's and Duke, that's on CBS and Paramount Plus. The 7:35 game, which is Alabama, Michigan, which we just finished talking about, is on TBS, truTV, and streaming on HBO Max. The 9:45 game on CBS from DC is, of course, UConn and Michigan State. And then the nightcap in Chicago on truTV and TBS, streaming on HBO Max, is Tennessee and Iowa State. And, you feel a little bit of Iowa State is possibly the best story of the tournament to me. I mean, it's not like Iowa State makes it to this to the dance that often.
Yeah. And they're a team that really has excelled these last couple of years
Mm-hmm.
under I can't remember his name, but good Lord, I can picture him because he looks like he's about to burst out of his shirt just about every time they play basketball. But he's done a fantastic job there. Really rebuilt that program. They succeeded last year. This is a different level of success for this Iowa State team, though, and they have a very good chance to go on a run here. And what is otherwise, like you look at their bracket, and hang on, I might be getting this one wrong.
TJ Osenberger is the name of the coach at Iowa
Yeah.
State.
So they don't have the best one seed in their bracket. They
Mhm,
will have to play one of Michigan or Alabama
mhm,
if they were to beat Tennessee. So they have a very good chance, and especially when you look at the battles that they went through with
mhm,
Arizona, and they played them pretty well throughout the season.
mhm,
That's one where you feel like they can go toe to toe with anybody since they were able to go toe to toe at the top of that Big 12 conference and make it to that title game. That's the reason they are the 2 seed, is because they made it to the title game in that Big 12 conference tournament. The only downside is that if they run the gauntlet of beating Tennessee and then they beat the one of Michigan or Alabama, guess
mhm.
who's going to be awaiting them in all likelihood? Arizona.
Yep. Yeah. That's not a prize they're looking for.
No,
Um,
it is not.
so, well, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun night for college basketball, and we'll see how it all plays out. But it's a nice story for Iowa State. I mean, sometimes you just want to. It's kind of like Indiana in football. You want to tip your hat and say, "Look, good on you for doing it right."
Yeah.
And Iowa State's done it right. They have invested and taken their time to get the right people in there. It's paid off for them.
Yeah, it has. It absolutely has. So
So, gotta like that. Um, let's see what else on the board here, real quick, that we can talk about. We've got our golf going out in Houston, and let's see what we got in the way of any other sports news we might have accidentally not gotten. Um,
I did find talked about the golf in Houston. I did find credit to Paul Hodowanik on X, Hodowanic is how you spell his last name. But this is the minimum finish for guys competing in the Texas Children's Houston Open. Who that would This is the finish they need to potentially crack the OWGR top 50 to qualify for the Masters. Michael Thornbronson needs a solo 11th or better. Ricky Fowler needs a solo 7th or better. Jordan Smith needs a solo 4th or better. Patrick Rogers, a solo 3rd or better. Taylor Pendrith, solo 3rd or better. JT Poston, a 3-way tied for 2nd or better. And Max McGreevy, a 2-way tied for 2nd or better. Anyone below McGreevy needs a win, which would get them into Augusta anyhow. So, Pearson Coody withdrew on Friday, actually. He's number 51 in the OWGR, and he could still potentially get into the top 50 based on other people and how they finish. So, he's close there. I think
mhm,
that's an interesting thing to watch. Particularly, I think everybody's going to be watching Ricky. Like, I don't
mhm.
think that's he's such a popular golfer, and he's built such a brand throughout his career that you're going to be watching and rooting. He shot 3 under yesterday. I don't think he has yet to get underway today. He had a morning tee time yesterday. Um, so let's see. Yeah, he's got a 142 tee time, so he's going to be teeing off here in about an hour, a little under. And he shot 3 under. He has a chance to go do it again today. And so far, he's sitting firmly inside that cut line, which is sitting at 1 under right now.
Two real quick football notes. Just when you thought it was safe, Tom Brady was contemplating a potential comeback, and the National Football League said no,
Yeah,
stop.
interesting. I didn't realize they could say no. But
Well,
they can.
he owns 5% of the Raiders.
Yeah, and you would assume that that's something where you would have to divest himself from that team if he was going to play football again.
Yeah, but I don't think that I don't think the league wants him to.
No, no.
And lastly, but not inconsequentially, Ben Roethlisberger said that if the Steelers, if Rodgers isn't coming back, which we don't know if he is or isn't, um, Ben said that a guy who backed him up, Josh Dobbs, would probably be a good choice. He said he just got released from New England. He knows the system. He knows the people. He said, by the way, the kid Dobbs
Mm-hmm.
he's got a degree in aeronautical engineering and worked in the off season with NASA.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's
not
really been.
exactly a dummy. This kid can get it. So Roethlisberger said, "Look, I saw everything. He spent 5 years with us, and he didn't make it into the starting lineup because, of course, Ben was there. But he said, you know what? I'd take a flyer on him. You never know."
Yeah, I wouldn't. All due respect to Ben Roethlisberger, Josh Dobbs is a guy that is a career journeyman. He's been a career journeyman for a
Mm-hmm.
reason. His most
Mm-hmm.
successful stop was in Minnesota. He had a good about 6 games. He earned the nickname the Pastronaut. Everybody loved him for about
Mm-hmm.
6 games, and then he kind of reverted back to what he is. And he's an average at best quarterback when you get him in the system. He's going to be a great backup. He's somebody that can come in and fill a gap for a few games and do a very good job at that. But he is a career backup for a reason, and that he will stay. I'm sure that Ben knows what he's talking about. I'm sure he likes him. Good friend. Not a franchise guy. Never going to be a
Mm-hmm.
franchise guy. And it's something where again, good backup. If you have the career, if you have your starter set in stone, Josh Dobbs is a fantastic second option, but he's not a one.
Right. Well, they don't have a one right now.
Yeah,
Um,
that is true.
well, they also have the kid. Was Ben Howard, the kid from uh, from
Ohio State.
yeah,
Yeah.
who didn't play at all last year because of an injury. So there is that possibility that they give him a shot. But there's a lot of time between now and when the Steelers hit the camp. So we'll see. But Ben putting his 2 cents worth in, the league telling Tom Brady, no, no
Mm-hmm.
more Brady mania. Stop it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the league did because I don't think honestly, I think it's Brady just. I don't know why he's milking this for publicity, but you know, he seems to like the concept of people thinking he's still going to be able to come back and play.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that's just Tom Brady and kind of his like allure. He is the headlines, right?
Right?
Um, and he's a pretty good ambassador for the league.
Yeah.
So he's out here making comments, playing flag football, this stuff, and really all in an attempt to kind of drum up some offseason conversation.
Speaking of flag football, um, and boy, have we gotten far afield. The U.S. flag football team has asked RG3 to come and try out for the team.
That's interesting.
You could do worse than Robert Griffin III.
You could. I think he's probably a couple ACL tears away from where you would have liked him to be if he was going to be a really, really effective member of that flag football team.
Yeah.
But never hurts to give it a try. I mean, if he still has,
Well, he got no wheels, but he's got the arm.
yeah, exactly.
So
And I mean, but at that point, wouldn't there be other NFL quarterbacks you would prefer over RG3?
you mean former
Oh,
ones?
former.
You're not going to get. There's no way in hell that they're going to let a present and NFL quarterback play in that flag football stuff. I mean,
well, yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, I was thinking Olympics. That's where my head was
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, you're not getting a current guy. But yeah, I mean, in terms of former, yeah, it's like him and Johnny Manziel, and the reason it's him and Johnny Manziel is because they did or may still do have some form of that athleticism they had in college. And it's also the name brand. The brand value with the name gets you a lot
Sure.
of places in terms of eyeballs.
One of my favorites is a guy who has done a really good job, I think, in the broadcast booth. A friend of my late friend and classmate of my late nephew, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's it's funny when he was on the Prime broadcast. It's like everywhere he went, and he jokingly said, "Yeah, I was a quarterback here once." Because I don't know. I think he had like 7 or 8 teams he was on it in the NFL. Some
Maybe.
of them for twice, but
Yeah.
it was like he was the guy that when you smash the axe to get the axe out of
Mhm.
the thing to say smash if necessary. Well, it seemed like he was anytime a quarterback went down, the phone went to Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. I mean, I think he made every stop in the AFC East, uh,
Yeah,
with the exception of the Patriots. The Bills, the Dolphins, and
Dolphins twice.
Jets. Yeah, yeah, Bills twice. He hit all three of those stops. I think he played for the Titans at a couple more spots that I'm definitely forgetting. But yeah, he was a journeyman, really, and funny enough, an AFC East journeyman.
Yeah, but he's as a broadcaster, I think he's a good guy. I enjoy
Yeah,
listening to him, and he's funny and you know, no, he's a Harvard guy, so he can't be too dumb.
yeah.
All right, here we go. Anything you want to get into before we leave here on a Friday afternoon?
Yeah, this is something interesting. You had mentioned yesterday that the wind was blowing at Wrigley.
Uh-huh.
10-4 game. I thought it was interesting because I found this video. They scored 14 runs and the wind was blowing.
Mhm.
Yesterday, Ian Happ hit a ball that was 109 miles per hour off the bat, had 32 degrees of launch angle. That is the
Mhm.
sweet spot in terms of trying to hit a home run and
Mhm.
where your launch angle is at. 32
Yeah.
degrees is pretty much optimal. He lost 113 feet of distance. A ball that normally would have landed outside of Wrigley Field was a fly out to left field.
The wind knocked it down.
113 feet of distance he lost to the wind. Insane.
Whoa, that's crazy. It's crazy to see they don't have stats for that, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's wow. All right, well, when the wind's blowing in, the pitchers are really happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it was blowing in. They still gave up 14 in total. So
Right.
10 to the Nationals. So
Yep.
you're giving up a lot of hits, a lot of singles if they're scoring 10 runs and the wind's blowing in like that, because that means they're dinking and dunking you a ton.
The first one was a home run, but it just was one of those ones that just got,
Just
maybe the
really,
second row
yeah.
of of that. But uh, Kevin Franzen brought up during the TV broadcast yesterday that concrete wall out there, the brick wall, because it's very intimidating when you're playing out there when you're running and going. You're going, okay, well maybe I'll just let that ball hit the wall. I'm not gonna run into the wall.
Yeah. Love Wrigley, love the Ivory. But good God, is that probably daunting? Because there ain't a thing. You got a plant. That's your cushion between you and brick
Well, yeah, but even
or the
even if you
toast.
barely run into it, right,
Yeah.
you're still hitting a brick wall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does
And
not
this time
feel
of the
good.
year, there's nothing out there. There's no ivy even out there.
Yeah, no. I mean, they don't want to run into the padded walls.
Right.
So what incentive do I have to go bang into a brick one?
So I'm
Not
saying
enough.
let the ball hit the wall. I'll take it on the bounce.
Yeah, I guess what? I'd rather give up a double in one of
Right.
162 baseball games
Right.
than crack a rib and miss 30.
Right. So, or God forbid, even worse.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, anyway, but it's wacky. But baseball's back. We got basketball tonight, and we'll see you on Monday, guys. We certainly gonna have a lot to talk about because by that time, we'll have the Final Four,
Hmm.
and we're getting closer to the Masters. So all kinds of fun stuff and coming up. All right, Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.